For USCFootball.com, Connor Morrissette and Chris Trevino were here on campus talking some recruiting. Chris, USC, they just keep going on this 2026 recruiting class. Tomuhini Topui, the four-star defensive lineman out of Mater Dei who decommitted from Oregon on Tuesday. It's now Friday, and he's committed to USC. So many wrinkles to this recruitment. It's such a huge story. We'll start with your reaction.
I mean, what did we call it on Tuesday in our instant analysis? The slow flip. USC gets him committed here and just keeps piling it on for their number one rated class. A massive pickup for USC and their defensive line class and defensive class in general. Number 100 overall prospect in the country. Number 13 defensive lineman. 6'3", 320 pounds. A true nose tackle prospect. This is the kind of prospect teams all over the country want for their defensive lines. You need a guy like this in the middle. It's what you need for a championship defense and a defensive line right here in your backyard in Southern California. This is a massive one and another huge stamp for Lincoln Riley, Chad Bowden, and this front office and what they're doing in recruiting local and just aiming for that number one spot and having that number one spot and keep building that lead.
I can't say enough good things about USC getting Tom committed in this 2026 class. For starters, just the production with him. I love guys who are highly ranked, who at the high school level just stand out. Oh, I can see why that guy is so highly ranked and why he produces at the level that he does. He was the Trinity League MVP on defense last season as a junior. That's the best league in the country. He's playing for one of the best teams in the country in Mater Dei, probably the best team in the country, and he just stands out. He is an alpha. He is just exactly what every team in the country is looking for, as you said, Chris. And then the other wrinkle to this, Oregon desperately wanted Tom. This isn't like, oh, they're moving away other targets. No, this was a battle that USC beat Oregon on head-to-head. Oregon, who has done so well with NIL, it's been well documented. USC is now in that game, and there's a ton that went into this recruitment behind the scenes. USC did a great job, but the financial piece with this is significant. USC did a lot to get this done, and they're playing with the big boys, which after years of saying they should be doing this, they are doing this. That's significant too.
Yeah, it reminds me of what Chad Bowden said in his sit-down with us, in that they are not going to be out-recruited by anyone. They're not going to be afraid of anyone. They're going to come to the table ready to play, and another win like this is just proof, backing up his words with his actions. And Tom, yeah, a second Oregon flip that USC has against the Ducks, taking Jonas Williams, the new Lennox quarterback out of Illinois, got him committed a couple months ago. He was on junior day. Both of those guys were there for USC's junior day, and that was kind of the first tipping point for USC, I think they're a serious player here for Tom. And since then, the momentum is building. Momentum has been building. And then Tuesday with the decommitment from Oregon, he shows up at USC's first day of spring camp, rocking the USC pullover. That was just the writing on the wall, and here we are talking about it on Friday. But yes, just a massive win in the context of everyone recruiting and the national scene, and how USC is now taking it from Oregon and protecting their backyard, California. As we know, the Ducks have been a thorn in the side of many USC fans and taking a lot of the top talent in California and sending it up there to Eugene. Now USC is putting their foot down and keeping guys home. As you know, the majority of this class, I believe he is the 10th commitment from California and 11th on the West Coast for USC in this class. So continuing to build the momentum locally, and just to get a guy out of Mater Dei. As we know, USC and their Mater Dei connection has been really strong, but kind of fell off in the Clay Helton era. And when Lincoln Riley first got here, tried to make those men's, didn't quite work out initially, and there was some complaints from USC fans. You got to be recruiting Mater Dei. Wasn't happening, and now you get the guy from Mater Dei, their big defensive tackle, the one everyone in the country wanted. Alabama, Miami, Florida, all those national offers. You don't have to go to the South to get a guy like that, 6'3", 330 pounds. You have one right in your backyard for 2026, and they got him right now. Obviously still has to sign, but to get him in the class at this point, that's, again, massive.
Massive, and we'll see how USC continues to hold on to this commitment. That's going to be a big story. With Jonas Williams, so he flips to USC, but then the Oregon people, it's like, oh, well, we want a Jared Curtis, we want Ryder Lyons. There is no substitute for Tom Tom. There's no one else in the country where it's like, okay, Oregon loses this guy. Well, we didn't really want. No, there's no replacement for this guy. This was my barometer recruitment for USC in the 2026 class. So to see them get this slow flip in their favor is just so significant. And I just keep going back to that because there haven't been too many head-to-head wins against Oregon for guys that they really desperately wanted to hang on to. So that just shows the times are a little different now. And we can go back to the timeline of it, Chris. So we were on campus Tuesday. We did our instant analysis video, like you said. Tom had decommitted, and then he comes out in that USC gear. And we got word on Tuesday that the flip had pretty much happened and that he committed behind the scenes, and now he just announced it today on Friday. But this has been in the works for a long time, and the USC staff deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, I mean, deserves a lot of credit. Hats off to them, Chad Bowden, this front office staff, and what they've been doing and really putting it to everyone else in the country and showing like, hey, we are here to play in the modern age of college football, recruiting, NIL, facilities, what have you. Got the facility going up over there. But obviously, USC still needs to win on the field. This is going to be a critical season for Lincoln Riley and that staff, and getting over, they haven't won that many games over the last 2 seasons, getting back to a double-digit win, showing the progress after 2 years of kind of instability and kind of changing things. Year 2 of Dan Lynn's defense. This is going to be a massive year for USC, and then obviously USC going to Eugene this season, going there to Oregon, so that is going to be a big game with everything going on. We'll see where both of those teams are going in. Oregon trying to get back to the college football playoff, but on the field, that one should be electric with all the recruiting context that we have here for USC and all the guys that they have poached so far, and still want to poach. Cody Green, that's another one. Maybe we'll end it there, but yeah, that's going to be a big one. And now they just got to win on the field because they're doing it off the field in recruiting.
Winning will be important, of course, and just keeping Tom committed and signed is now the next step in this, like it is with every big prospect who has committed to USC. Oregon's not going to go away. They're going to continue to recruit Tom. I'm sure other schools will as well, but this is going to be a Oregon-USC battle until the end. So it's big news today at the end of March here, but until he signs, what did Chad Bowden say when we met with him in Heritage Hall earlier this month? When guys commit, then we start really recruiting them. So they're going to put the pedal to the floor and make sure he signs, do everything they can to get him to sign. But really the race is just starting in some ways now that he has flipped. Chris, we can wrap up with this. If Tom does sign, where does he fit in at USC going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, looking at USC's defensive line clash right now, you got Tom, you have Jamian Winfield, who the Texas out of Richardson via Mississippi, he is a beast too. And then Simote Katawanga out of Rancho Santa Margarita.
That's a lot of really talented guys.
Those 3 guys all project as interior defensive line, defensive tackles, all in the top 100. Literally all in the top 100. Consensus 4-star prospects, national offers across the board. And then you have Braden Jones, the edge rusher out of Chicago, Illinois, who is a top 247 prospect, also consensus 4-star. So that's a lot of 4 stars. Guys were complaining about, 3 stars. No, they have top 100 dudes here committed to USC. And with Tom in the future, you have Keyshawn Silver. He's here for this season. They got size now, Kobe Pepe, Jamal Jarrett. But Keyshawn Silver, we expect him to go to the NFL after this year. Kobe Pepe, 6-year senior. He's out of eligibility after this year. You're losing 2 330-pound plus guys. Jamal Jarrett's returning. He's a young guy. Is he ready to be a step up and be a starter next season? Don't know. We're going to see him, try to mature and develop more into this rotation this year. But Tom has an opportunity to come in right away to play because they only have 2 of those guys. If we're assuming Tom signs, and you got Jamal Jarrett coming back for 2026. That's a nice combo. You're hoping Tom can be a guy who can rotate in and eventually take over that starting job because he should be a multi-year starter for this Trojan defense moving forward. But yeah, that is where he fits as a nose tackle. He's explosive enough to play defensive tackle as well. I'm sure they're going to move him around as an attacking D tackle, but he is a space eater. He is that guy that takes on 2 blocks, frees up the plays for everyone else, for Jakeem Stewart, for Devin Tompkins, those guys to make plays in the backfield. He is an unheralded position, but he is a critical position. And you saw what happened when you don't have one of those guys on your roster last year with USC's defense in 2024. You're susceptible to the run. You don't get a lot of pressure. Now that you have a guy like that, and hopefully you're going to see it in 2025 with Silver, Pepe, Jamal Jarrett, but Tom is a guy and has a higher ceiling than all of those guys, I think, just because of his special ability to take up blocks and also make his own plays in the backfield. 10.5 tackles for a loss last season, and he was asked to do a lot. And some think he's a better offensive line prospect, but no, he's coming to play D-line for USC.
I agree with everything you said there, and it's rare for guys at that position to come in and contribute early. But when you watch Tom in some of the bigger games at Mater Dei last season, he's wrecking the game against the St. John Bosco, against some of those other talented Trinity League teams. If there's a guy who would at that position come in and play early, I think it would be him. For my money, there's not a better interior defensive lineman in the 2026 class than him. So just a massive, massive recruiting win for USC. Can't say enough good things about it, like I said off the top of the show. Things are different here at USC now with Chad Bowden. Things are clicking in this 2026 class. I didn't think that USC would get the number one class a couple months ago. I thought it would have to be kind of a slow build where maybe you start in the top 10, then you get a top 5, then you get a number one class. Right now, Chris, do you think USC can get a number one class? I think that's very much in the balance here, and they have a real shot at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just by numbers alone, because as he said, this is going to be the largest class they've signed in USC program history. So numbers alone, yeah, you could be up there. I'm banking top 5 at least, and right now I'm looking at top 3. But again, we'll see where they land after the summer, because Chad Bowden has done this at Notre Dame. They've had the number one class, and they kind of faded a little bit. But we'll know more after the summer. If they're sitting at like 320 points in terms of the points in the recruiting rankings, that's where you need to be for the number one class. Maybe they'll be a little under that, but if they're like 300 plus, yeah, I think they have a good shot to have the number one class, or at minimum top 5. And I'm looking at top 3 right now. I'm not going to say number 1 right now, but it's looking really good for a top 3 class. So again, we'll have to see where they're standing after official visits in the summer, because that's where kind of things set out, the dust settles going into the season, and then you got to play the season, and then we'll see where it shakes out. But right now, yeah, looking very good for one of the best classes in quite some time for USC.
For USCFootball.com, I'm Connor Morrissette. He's Chris Trevino. This has been the Tom commitment video brought to you by USCFootball.com. Like I said, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.